WEEI.
WEEI, thank you so much for hanging out. It's KJ in for Mud at Night, 617-779-7937. Thank you so much for being here and enjoying your President's Day. Let's go to text line 37937. Justin, what we got?
We've got this one from the 413. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson's president, George Jefferson, is the TV character.
Boy, it's amazing how people really believe someone is really stupid enough to think that I think that George Jefferson was actually a president. It was a play on George Washington mixing up Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson's not even the second President's Day, it's Lincoln. And George Lincoln wouldn't make any sense if I said it George Lincoln. So you say George Jefferson. This is why some people cannot do this job. They believe things like they see them. All right, what else you got?
We've got this one from the 781 here. Do not underestimate Bill Belichick changing as the NFL does. Do not be surprised if the philosophy changes with Houston and New England with the OC and QB potential changes.
I don't know. When you're so close to glory and your own glory at that, you start looking at houses and thinking about trips you'll be able to take during the season. I think it's just a small percentage that Belichick may be thinking, hey, here's an exit, before Matt gets paid. So in terms of kind of being slow-footed with getting these coordinators in there, I think Bill's going to absolutely operate control. But I think he figures he can get 10 wins over the next 4 years and bail out in 25. That's just not bad thinking for his personal self. All right, one more.
And this one from the 617, actually a perfect segue into what you were just about to get into. They agree with the punishment for Howard.
Yes, Juwan Howard just came down minutes ago, suspended for the entire season. In fact, let's go ahead and play as it happened on CBS at the end of the game yesterday.
Oh, see, and they're going at it. Oh, yeah. Howard and Gard are not happy right now as the two of them continue to have words. We told you Juwan Howard was not happy about that timeout. And Juwan Howard just threw a right hand. And now we got a scrum. We have a scrum in Madison. Players are pushing and shoving. This is an ugly scene.
Gus Johnson getting warmed up for March Madness, huh? I'm kidding. That's kind of funny.
Unbelievable call, though.
Yeah, I mean,
for that?
What a way to pivot, suddenly tap into your UFC, mental capabilities, But you just never want to see things get out of hand where adults and youth are involved, right? That's really the big issue is you've got college students, because if this was a couple of NBA players, you would just call it par for the course. These things happen. If it was a couple of NBA coaches, you wouldn't necessarily lose it the way you would lose it. But when you're involving college kids and adults, and the adults in the room don't necessarily show a great example, it just makes the scene uglier. So here's Gary Gard, the head coach of Wisconsin, after the game, telling why he believed what happened between him and Juwan Howard.
Well, apparently he didn't like that I called the timeout.
Yeah. Over a timeout. Now, those who've played at competitive levels know that, look, when you believe there's a game that you should have won or you should have been more competitive in, and little knick-knack things happen, like in the NBA, like one of the deathly sins is if you're losing by 10 and you decide to take another shot instead of just dribbling out the clock, they'll have words with you after the game. That's when they tend to have words like, what are you doing? Or the old Ricky Davis, if you remember that from about 15 years ago. Ricky Davis knew that they were losing, needed one more rebound for a triple-double. It hit his own rim with the ball. Players don't play that stuff. But here's what Juwan Howard says occurred.
What happens between being upset about a timeout being called and raising it to a point where it looked like you hit another coach in the face? What kind of happens in between to make that happen?
Well, basically, I addressed with the head coach that I will remember that because of that timeout, and for someone to touch me, and I think that was very uncalled for him to touch me as we were verbalizing and communicating with one another. So that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I guess if you could, expand on that a little more. What?
No, I would not expand on it. I'll just share with you the story, what happened.
Well, as far as touching, there's obvious touching with the handshake line there. It must have been more than that.
Oh, yeah, it was more than that. Yeah. touching me unnecessary wasn't cause for that when we were talking. And at that point, I thought that was, time to protect myself.
Ever hear the term microaggression? If you haven't, don't feel bad. But if you have, you'll be like, uh-oh, KJ, about to do something. See, microaggression is a form of passive aggressiveness that you may not think is a big deal, but is aggressive to the person that it's happening to. So imagine that this was a women's college game, and Greg Gard is the coach of Wisconsin, but a female is the head coach of Michigan. And as the head coach of Michigan, who would be a female in this situation, attempts to walk by and not say anything, but is then blocked from moving forward, and then the coach from the other team puts their hands on them. What happens in society when that happens? That's technically a crime. You cannot block someone from moving forward in their path. You can't do that. You can't say, girl, don't go, and blocking them. You're getting into simple kidnapping. Now, I'm not calling kidnapping what happened up there, but the microaggression of putting themselves in the way, Greg Gard, of Juwan Howard just walking away and then putting your hands on him. Now, Juwan Howard should be suspended for the season. Totally agree. Went too far. But if Juwan Howard was Dawn Howard, head coach of Michigan's women's basketball team, and a male from Wisconsin's team put their hands on the woman, and then the woman eventually swung, would we have the same conversation today? Microaggression. Even when Juwan Howard answered the question saying, when he put his hands on me. Now, it may seem like no big deal, but when he put his hands on him, it changed the narrative immediately. Juwan Howard was wrong to punch and swing, but again, do we hear anyone saying Greg Gard was wrong to put his hands on Juwan Howard? Microaggression. You even heard some of it when some of the NBA players at the beginning of the season were complaining about people throwing things on the court. Some even said, oh, what's the big deal? It's only a plastic bottle. It's not like they're throwing glass bottles at them. Microaggression. The reporter, when asking Juwan Howard in that clip, followed up and said, well, I'm not understanding. And Juwan Howard just told you, what didn't you understand about me saying him putting his hands on me? Remember, Juwan Howard attempted to walk by and say little to nothing. But the microaggression stepped in. Greg Gard put his hands on him. Do you hear that in the narrative? Paulie, 617-779-7937. Thank you for calling WEEI. Go ahead.
What's up, KJ?
You, Paulie?
Listen. Hey, brother, listen. Bottom line is that the Wisconsin guy should have let him walk by without putting his grabbing his arm, and then causing Juwan Howard to grab him by the shirt, and then they both let go of each other. They were separated. For that right there, was the Wisconsin coach should be suspended for the rest of the year. Now they separated them, and Juwan Howard maybe should have been maybe a couple of games or something. Maybe that would be it.
Paulie, here's the thing. I agree that Juwan Howard should be suspended for the season. But what I want to bring out is that there is no conversation that's being had about the microaggressive act. Now, you agree with it, but nobody's talking about Greg Gard putting his hands on Juwan Howard, because if their name was Dawn Howard and this was a women's college basketball game, this would be on every single newscast, and the response would be she would have had every right to respond the way that she did because he put his hands on her. My question is, just because it's a
man on woman, absolutely. Oh my God, today's Me Too society and all that. So you want to play with the boys, you should be able to play like the boys. But hey, listen, bottom line is the guy from Wisconsin shouldn't have done that. He's trying to get his attention, but he caused a melee by doing it. So he should be gone for the rest of the year. And Juwan Howard, for not being man enough to, once they were separated, because he did grab him by the collar in return. When they were separated, he should have come back and fired a shot over the crowd. And for that, he should be fired, okay? There's a big problem, okay, with the black youth. Or see it in the inner cities. There's a big problem with violence, and there has been for decades. These are young men that must be guided in the right direction. There's a large problem down in the inner cities with this.
Except for they were in Madison, Wisconsin. That's not exactly.
If they let him stay, that's saying, okay, we'll give you a little slap on the wrist. You can go ahead and fire shots at people and not have to worry about it. No, this is amateur sports. This ain't the pros. This is amateur.
Thanks,
this
Paulie.
is teach and chill.
Bye-bye. I get it. My point being, just because he's a man, the microaggression is okay? That's my whole point. I never sat here and said, well, Juwan Howard was justified in what he was doing. No, let's start from the beginning of things. The microaggression towards athletes and now college coaches like Penny Hardaway and other guys who are making money are not making friends in college basketball. I'm up against the break, but I'm going to take your calls next. 617-779-7937. The text line 37937. It's KJ in for Mutt here on WEEI. Thanks for hanging out.